Hello and welcome back to the channel. So hopefully you've had a chance to watch my first video that I properly uploaded, and that was the amazing eBay pickup of the PlayStation 3 Super Slim with over 20 games. Now, this is probably one of my favourite parts about collecting, right? So you pick up your console, you maybe get some games. In this case, I've got over 20, so there's a lot of great titles ticked off. But for me then, I'm always looking for, right, what excites me the most about the system? What are those kind of killer apps that you just have to pick up? So because I've previously owned a PlayStation 3 in the past, and I'm very aware and nostalgic for a lot of the series, I thought, right, time to actually start looking for individual titles. And one of the best places I think that you can go for reliably picking up titles for a good price, it's got to be CEX. First of all, the first game at the top of my list was Killzone 2. And I couldn't believe it when I had a look online. I spotted that it was only £2. Fantastic series, one that again still remains exclusive to the PlayStation 3. I was worried that after playing on the Xbox Series X for years, that, you know, going back to some of these titles in the PlayStation 3, it could be quite jarring, but actually it's not dated all that bad. It is quite clunky at times, it's very of its time, sort of visually and stylistically, but I would say again it holds up really, really well. It's a great experience, and it's one that I definitely want to do a kind of full video on, because, you know, it just totally blew my mind getting to experience that again. And of course, you can't pick up Killzone 2 without looking at Killzone 3. Another just massive blockbuster title. I don't think it holds up maybe as strong as the second game. I think they leaned more heavily into multiplayer. But for £5.50 to own both games, it's really hard to complain. I definitely played a good few chapters of Killzone 2 back in the day. Probably played maybe one or two chapters of Killzone 3 and then maybe moved on to other things. So I'm really excited to actually give this series a proper deep dive and try and complete both of them now over the next couple of months. Now, in my book, PlayStation 3 has some really sort of key series, and you cannot own a PlayStation 3 without having at least one Uncharted game in your collection. Now, I think Uncharted 3 was probably like the biggest release in the system. 2 was definitely, I think, a fan favourite, one that in my mind I think of holding up better, or at least more memorable. But 3 was just, it's totally its own big thing. This was the, finale of the Nathan Drake original trilogy. Now, as you can see from the box, it was only £1. So you can really pick up a lot of these titles very, very cheap. And as I say, CEX is going to be a reliable way of doing that. So if you're ever on eBay and you see bundles that include things like Killzone, maybe Uncharted, some other titles like that, maybe Battlefield games, Call of Duty games, just be wary. Don't be paying over the odds, because I do seem to see a lot of Uncharted titles going for, £5+ on eBay individually, and there's no need to be paying that. Now, moving on to the next title, this is another absolutely key PlayStation iconic series that I've been a fan of since the original, and that is Ratchet & Clank. And this title here, Tools of Destruction, was the first big game in that continuation, and its big first entry onto the PlayStation 3. For me, very nostalgic to go back to these. I'm having a great time with it. And another thing, just a wee tip for collecting, is I noticed that most boxed games that are out on the kind of shop floor in CEX will typically have the manual already in the case. So if you notice that there's multiple of the same game, have a look for the best box. Have a look for the one that's got the least marks, has the best condition manual inside, that sort of thing. But what I noticed is with Ratchet & Clank Tools of Destruction, it was the only copy in the local CEX that I was in, but it had no manual. So I went up to the counter, taking up the rest of my games, and I thought I'll just chance my arm, and I asked, by the way, there's a game out on the floor, Ratchet & Clank Tools of Destruction for the PlayStation 3. Would it be possible to check, does it have the manual with the disc behind the counter? She was more than happy to go and check for me, and lo and behold, they had it. So just as a wee tip, might be worthwhile asking if you are, from a collector standpoint, looking for that complete copy. It's well worth doing. And for £4 for the condition, having it complete, I'm really, really pleased with that. Okay, so finally, the last pickup. I wasn't going to leave CEX without picking up one of my favourite games from that generation, and that is Mirror's Edge. So this is a parkour game that's highly stylised. There's a lot of kind of whites, blues and reds, and, very dystopian. And you play as Faith, who is this parkour runner, and she's always trying to evade the authorities. Now, as much as there is guns, this game was developed by DICE, would you believe, who were really known for their the Battlefield series at the time. Explosive, military, over the top, big multiplayer action. And then you've got this really highly stylized parkour game. So it's a really, really unique experience. And as much as there is guns in this, they take a total backseat. There is no point in you trying to fight a crowd or battle someone for their gun just to then slowly lumber about trying to shoot them. Your best bet is to try and use the environment, and that's what I absolutely loved about this. It was just a total breath of fresh air with the kind of intense shooters that I was so used to at the time. Now, I played this endlessly on the Xbox 360. I even picked it up again when I owned a PS3 in the past, as also a throwback to how much I enjoyed it in the 360. So I think I've probably got a lot of the trophies for this, but I just feel as a real throwback for me, this matters so much to me as a title. And that's another thing I would say about collecting. Go back and buy titles. Go back and play the games that you remember fondly. There's every chance that they'll hold up and that you'll have a real blast from, even if you are maybe trying to go for trophies that you missed or achievements that you missed. So in total then, that was 5 games for £13. So I really can't complain about that. I think that's fantastic value. Just shows you, be patient, keep a look to your local stores. Don't be afraid to ask for manuals when you're collecting things as well, because complete copies can matter a lot. Now lastly, just to wrap up the video, I've got another pickup from eBay. Now again, like I've mentioned before, when you start buying bundles, before you know it, you can't pick up bundles left, right and centre, because you'll start to notice a lot of duplicate titles that you already own. But going back to one of the reasons why I want to collect for the PlayStation 3 is for some of the series that are locked on that system. And one of the classics, one of the top titles of the PS3 for me is Resistance. That was one of the reveal trailers way back in the day, and it was like, wow, this is like nothing I've ever seen before. So it's mental. This was developed by Insomniac, who made the Ratchet & Clank series. However, this is a total change in direction. Instead of all that colourful platforming that you're used to, this was a gritty alternative World War II setting where humanity's fighting aliens. That ticks loads of boxes for me. That is right up my street. So one thing I'm looking forward to is just getting into that with a fresh perspective. I'm not going to look up reviews or rankings. Just want to appreciate them for myself. And last but not least, we've got a platinum copy of Uncharted Drake's Fortune. Now, I actually wasn't going to go out my way to pick up the Uncharted games. I've completed Uncharted 1, completed Uncharted 2, which in my book is still one of my favourites. But I've never completed Uncharted 3, so that was one of the reasons I wanted to go back and get those games. But here was an example of a classic game being part of a bundle. Wasn't really intending to pick it up because I've already completed it. However, I'm hardly going to complain. It's always good having a copy of Uncharted in your collection. So overall, that is all the pickups that I've picked.
Allow myself to introduce myself.
So that's everything that I've managed to pick up recently. The CEX games came to about £13, and the eBay bundle, would you believe, for Resistance 1, 2 and Uncharted Drake's Fortune cost me, for a winning bid, £1.54. Now that's an absolute bargain. And one of the reasons I enjoy collecting for old systems is you can get these great games for next to nothing if you're patient. And it's about building up that collection. I think for me, it's an easy mistake to just go in and start splashing the cash and just buying up loads of bundles. And then before you know it, you don't play half of them. So for me, I want to be really specific with my collection. I want it to be quite contained and limited to the games that I'm really, really interested in. So listen, thank you very much for watching. I'm looking forward to doing some more deep dives into these games, and I've also found out that you can get capture cards quite cheap, so I've picked up one off eBay. I'm hoping that can arrive in the coming weeks, but until then I'll still use other methods to record some gameplay, and I'll try and just keep the videos coming out until I get that. So thanks everyone for watching, hope you enjoyed that. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.